Tsangyang Gyatso once wrote, "Where could I find a way to get you and the Enlightenment both, so I won't let you and the Buddha down in this Jew-like world?" Later, for the sake of love, he ultimately sacrificed his own life and gave up his studies in Buddhism. But it was also because of love that he left behind many touching and romantic poems. So I'd like to ask, how do you evaluate Tsangyang Gyatso? Thank you.
What she was really asking is there a way in this world for someone to have the best of both worlds, to find a balance between love relationships and Buddhist practice? Not to let down the Buddha's mission, nor to let down his beloved, in other words, to be faithful to the Buddha, and also to be faithful to his beloved as well at the same time. I think, as I just mentioned, if you are a monk standing at a higher level of realization, in fact, a monk should see through the self, and at that level, he would be able to take on the Buddha's legacy with full capacity and understanding. At that particular time, there were also many individuals who gave up their personal attachments, their families and their own personal feelings, even their romantic relationships, and chose to become monks. There were people like that. Then there is another somewhat more moderate type, just like many of you lay practitioners, as I've mentioned repeatedly. You live an ordinary, simple, worldly life, each in your own way, as men and women carrying out daily responsibilities. And yet, at the same time, you are still able to engage in many truly meaningful and beneficial activities for the Dharma, bringing benefit to countless beings. From the highest state of understanding, when viewed on the surface, it may seem as if you have already given up your own family, just like the renowned Buddhist scholar and artist, Master Hongyi. After Master Hongyi made the decision to become a monk, he devoted himself entirely to the Dharma. His Japanese wife came to visit him at that time, and when she came to see him, some movies say that in the end he eventually met her again. While some historical accounts say that he did not meet her in the end, nevertheless, Master Hongyi, for the sake of promoting the Vinaya school, selflessly gave up his small family and wholeheartedly chose the path of monastic life. Yet later, in her old age, his wife gradually came to understand the true nature of all phenomena and the impermanence of worldly attachments. In the end, she realized that all who are born must die and all gatherings must eventually disperse. Ultimately, she also came to deeply understand Master Hongyi's choice. She realized that all relationship, no matter how strong, cannot be preserved for long. In the end, at the very least, when leaving this world, no one can look after anyone else. Just like the so-called love songs of Tsangyang Gyatso at that time, it should be said that people of many different levels can freely interpret them in their own ways. Moreover, regarding his songs, I have spoken about them on different occasions. There are many external meanings, internal meanings, and even secret meanings within them. On the surface, they talk a lot about the relationship between men and women in the world. But in fact, internally, there are also many reflections of the historical circumstances of that time, as well as various methods for cultivating different states of mind, and so on.
Hello, Master. I am from the Chinese department. I would like to ask a question, which is, nowadays, attachment to relationships has become a serious challenge, deeply troubling many young people. It has led to the problem of juvenile delinquency in society. Just now, you also mentioned an incident involving 2 university students. So I want to ask, with the frequent occurrence of juvenile crimes nowadays, the reason is, as Freud once said, there are 2 main human desires, sexual desire and the desire for aggression. Considering the unique psychology of adolescents, as well as their lack of social experience, some individuals can't fully control their bodies and minds, which can sometimes lead them to some extreme behaviors. What's your view on this? How should teenagers practice training their mind and self-cultivation, like using meditation or mindfulness techniques? Of course, you were once young yourself. That is to say, perhaps under the aura of a spiritual teacher, many people tend to idealize or even deify you when it comes to certain issues. But you were also young once. When you were young, what was your mental state and your desires like? I also hope you can answer this. Thank you.
I think I am still young now at this stage. Just kidding, I don't really think that way. But as you just mentioned, Freud said that the main reason for the downfall of young people today is desire, which often leads them to act impulsively and lose self-control. Why is it that among young people in different settings, we can only do what little we are able to do, so to speak? We really want many young people to truly understand what this desire actually is and how it affects their thoughts and actions. We're not trying to deny the truth either. If it really were something joyful and perfect, we would also greatly admire it, appreciate it, and cherish it. But behind it, in its very nature, there are many different causes and sources of suffering. So at the very least, whether it is from traditional culture or from other religions, philosophies, and various sources of knowledge and wisdom, young people today genuinely need to have a clear understanding and truly know what this particular desire is like. If we haven't made such preparations in advance, for example, why do so many young people nowadays commit suicide because of love? I've been to many different schools, and in many of the tall multi-story buildings there, a significant number of young people have tragically jumped to their deaths. The lake's nearby too in many cases. Just now I saw your lake. It's very beautiful, but as I was walking around it, I thought to myself, has anyone ever actually jumped in here? I silently asked myself that. Maybe not. Probably not. No. So what exactly is the underlying reason for this phenomenon in society? It's because people don't really understand desire, to be honest. If they truly understood, looking back at the history of the Tibetan region, even though there are young people who commit suicide nowadays, in the past, suicides over love were unheard of among the Tibetan people in their traditional society. So there is a certain gap between our publicity and our understanding of these matters. Personally, whether it was when I was young or in later years, I have reflected on this from different perspectives, including now after I became a monk. Do I still have desire? Do I still have attachment? I definitely do. As for my knowledge and practice in this area, honestly, I can't really say that I have very much. I can't claim to have reached any high level of realization, but in many respects, I do have a fairly clear and steady understanding of what it's really like. Whether it's the events that happened in history or the various afflictions discussed extensively in Buddhism or the detailed analysis of the human body and its components, so I feel that through my own personal experiences and reflections, I can sense this clearly and deeply understand it. Nowadays, many people especially need a true understanding in this area. If you have this understanding, then in your daily life, you might still have some desire and attachment, but you won't be so easily troubled by them. They won't bring you real suffering, and even less will they make you completely lose your confidence in the end or fall into deeper despair. Ultimately, you won't actually end up taking your own life. Nowadays, breakups are really very common among many people, and I only came to hear this particular term much later on, as it gradually started being used more widely in everyday conversation. I didn't even know about it because in Tibetan area, this term doesn't exist. So many young people in Tibetan area don't know what breakup is, but because of media and certain materials, many people in Han regions are familiar with it. Once they experience breakup, many people choose suicide. Why is this? It's because of our attachments. This is something young people need to learn about. If you approach it with a positive attitude and understanding, I believe it will benefit you in your future life.
Homage to Khenpo Sodargye Rinpoche. I am a student from the 2010 class in the finance department. I'd like to ask a question on a different topic. I've heard Master Huineng, the sixth patriarch, say this line: originally there is not a single thing, so where can dust alight? Buddhism emphasizes emptiness, meaning that everything is illusory. Since all these things are illusory, then why do we still need to practice generosity and perform virtuous deeds? Why do we need to practice the Dharma? Wouldn't it be enough to just sit at home? Thank you.
Originally, there is not a single thing whatsoever at all, but our attachments over time truly start to cause trouble. Buddhism teaches that whether it's our current situations or all phenomena, everything is like a dream or illusion. This dreamlike, illusory nature exists within worldly appearances. If we analyze further, even this illusion is just emptiness. Looking deeper, even emptiness is not there. It is truly an inconceivable state. This is the core idea advocated by Buddhism. But why is it that we can't understand this right now? Because we have not fully realized this principle yet. Even if we have a slight understanding of it in words, we have not actually practiced it. If we don't practice, we are just like many people in academia today who talk big and can speak very well, but in reality have never actually practiced themselves at all. This is not only the case in Buddhism. Actually, physicists are like this as well. Physicists often say that this table, when analyzed down to molecules and atoms, everything ultimately becomes extremely subtle, tiny things. But why does it exist? If we ask Einstein, why is it like this? He says, although its essence is made up of such minute things, if we don't analyze it, it still exists just as it is, in fact. So in Buddhism, even if we understand the emptiness of all things, we still need to practice. In the end, for example, as I just mentioned, the human body is not clean. When I say this on the surface, many people understand it. But when you analyze it, no matter how beautiful a person's body is, there's nothing truly clean about it. In the past, when Ajahn Chah went out on a journey once, it was said that in America, someone told him at the time, "I really miss so-and-so." At that time, Ajahn Chah was a truly remarkable master in Theravada Buddhism. He asked, do you really like everything about her? He replied, "I like everything about her." If you like everything about her, have her send you something. Send you what? Have her send you her impure excrement and then take a sniff. Every time you miss her, just take a sniff and that'll do. In the end, when it comes down to it, that's impossible. It's the same principle. Now, in theory, we understand that the human body is unclean. If you haven't practiced or cultivated, you'll still be attached. We know all phenomena are empty in nature. But if you haven't practiced, you'll still be attached just the same. The most crucial point is to practice after your theoretical awakening. In the end, when your practice is accomplished, you truly won't be attached anymore. At that point, you have already realized emptiness. When theory and practice are combined, only then do you truly understand the principle that all phenomena are empty.
Master, hello. I am from the 2011 class of Public Administration. Just now, I noticed that you kept mentioning and repeatedly bringing up the issue of attachment. Because we are attached to emotions, that's why we suffer. So, if we simply just let go of our attachment to things, then we won't have to suffer anymore, right? Then, are you attached to the pursuit of truth or the cultivation of your inner self? Does this kind of attachment also cause you suffering? Then, shouldn't you also let go of this attachment? Thank you.
Actually, there are in fact two kinds of attachment. One kind of attachment brings a lot of suffering, for example, our attachment to romance relationship or to material possessions, or when we get caught up in all kinds of deluded and misleading things that don't really exist, yet you still cling to them. In the end, this will inevitably bring you suffering, but if we sincerely pursue goodness, cultivate virtue, and strive to benefit others, even though it is an attachment, in the end, we must also let it go. But for the time being, it is necessary. It's like when we cross a river, we need a boat, even though once we safely reach the shore, we no longer need it. But while crossing the river, the boat is absolutely indispensable and necessary. There are also two kinds of boats for crossing the river. One kind is reliable, a boat that you must have to get across the river. Another kind of boat not only can't get you across, but is also especially painful to use. Even though this kind of boat is still a boat, it too must be abandoned. Among our attachments, some are good and some are bad. We should let go of the bad ones. For the good ones, we can use them for now, but eventually we can let them go too.
Hello, Master. I am from the 2009 International Trade class. Buddhism teaches us to have an understanding of emptiness. So I would like to ask, for a master who earnestly practices the teachings of Mahayana Buddhism, who is known for possessing deep and genuine compassion, and who has truly generated the precious mind of bodhicitta, may I ask, does he still have love in his heart? Because if we truly and carefully look at it from the perspective of emptiness, then none of this should involve love. As the saying goes, once you fall in love, it's like falling into the ocean. You may go further and further down the path of love, and if you go astray, you may fall even deeper. That's why, in society, there are so many cases of mistresses, unhappy marriages, crimes of passion, and so on. So I would like to ask, could the Master give us a few methods to help us to look inward and perhaps carefully examine whether we have gone astray, or are there ways to help us discover our mistakes? I may not have expressed myself very clearly. Could you explain it to me?
As practitioners of Mahayana Buddhism, some masters who possess the profound view of emptiness and have genuinely generated bodhicitta, or learned scholars and dedicated practitioners, from their unique perspective, actually, as I mentioned earlier, all phenomena are empty in the end. Everything is of the nature of emptiness. However, before we are able to fully attain this state, our strong attachment to benefiting all sentient beings and generating the precious mind of bodhicitta, as well as our heartfelt aspirations and wishes, are indispensable. Will this become an obstacle to realizing emptiness? No, it certainly will not. As everyone knows, we are all emotional beings right now in this very moment. As emotional beings in the process of pursuing the realization of emptiness, among the various paths before us, those that benefit all sentient beings, those that benefit only ourselves, and those that harm both ourselves and others, we should choose the path that benefits all beings. And ultimately, we ourselves will also reach the state of realizing emptiness. On the path to enlightenment, we must clearly distinguish the emptiness of all phenomena from the liberation of sentient beings, as is also explained in the Buddhist scriptures. In ultimate reality, all phenomena are empty, but in conventional reality, they exist. Like dreaming, if you face something frightening in a dream, you need to get away from them, even though it's a dream. Suffering in dreams needs to be eased, and happiness in dreams should be sought. In the end, when you wake up, you realize it was just a dream. So when you realize emptiness, even liberating sentient beings is like a dream. But for now, we cannot give up. This is a profound Buddhist teaching. All the people asking questions here are boys.
Master, hello. I am from the 2010 class of Mechanical and Electrical Engineering. So, focusing on today's topic, what is love? Once, one of my classmates who was particularly interested in Buddhism told me a lot about it. He talked about things like attaining Buddhahood and so on. At that time, I didn't really understand much about this area. So I asked him in return, since you want to become a Buddha, isn't that also a kind of desire? It's called the desire to attain Buddhahood. Buddhism is rather ascetic and it emphasizes equality. So why is it that when it comes to romantic feelings between men and women, this kind of desire must be forbidden? But the desire to become a Buddha, which I also see as a kind of desire, why is that considered right while the other is considered wrong? And just now, Teacher Joe mentioned that Buddhism is quite inclusive. Buddhist teachings are boundless, and since they are boundless, isn't there a saying, the sea embraces all rivers, tolerance is greatness? If it's truly boundless, then it should have enough inclusiveness. So why can't these human emotions and desires also be embraced instead of being cut off? That's my question. Thank you.
What I mainly want to express today is also this point. Just now in my talk, I also emphasized this repeatedly. I said that, in fact, Buddhism does not completely sever all romantic feelings between men and women. I've also cited many scriptures to explain this. But Buddhism always wants you to truly recognize the suffering that inevitably comes with the attachment to love, to see clearly the so-called misery of love. So I think that for a person who genuinely wishes to attain Buddhahood and to gain the remarkable ability to save all sentient beings, on the surface, this also appears to be a kind of desire. However, in reality, it is actually very different from the type of desire that is rooted in attachment and greed. If you want to attain Buddhahood through study, accumulating merit and generating bodhicitta, then on the surface it appears to be a kind of desire. But ultimately you truly attain the genuine truth. This is the truth, because benefiting sentient beings, liberating them, and practicing unconditional altruism is actually indispensable for any living being. But if you want to possess others, if you become overly attached to others and generate all kinds of worldly sensual desires, then even temporarily, this also becomes a cause of suffering for you. So Buddhism does not reject all worldly emotions. As I just mentioned repeatedly, many of us think that Buddhism is indeed emotionless, that it rejects all worldly emotions. But actually, that's not the case. Once you understand the principles of Buddhism, you'll see that Buddhism does not reject any aspect of normal life. However, Buddhism does require you to uphold a pure code of precepts. This is also a gradual process. It's not as if everyone does not require shaving your head or becoming a monk on the first day, nor does it say everyone must become a Buddhist or take refuge precepts. There is no such requirement. Wherever I go, I follow the spirit of Buddhism. You may choose to believe or not. But the theories discussed in Buddhism are worth exploring and exchanging with each other. If you judge Buddhism based on a one-sided understanding, that is actually not reasonable. Many young people today are relatively unfamiliar with Buddhism, sometimes taking terms out of context without proper understanding, which increases their biases and leads them to make judgments and conclusions. In the end, they even slander it without basis. These are some of the most alarming phenomena in today's society that we observe. We hope many wise people will take a positive approach to understanding this. What exactly is the Buddhist attitude toward emotional attachment as described in the Buddhist scriptures? Is it a complete rejection and prohibition? No, it is not. We are not like that. It is neither a form of hedonism nor is it entirely asceticism. It does not prohibit all desires. That's not the case. Therefore, the Buddhist scriptures contain very detailed descriptions of this.
I would like to ask a practical question. For example, in real life, when two young people fall in love, but due to certain family or social views, they are forced apart. They must consider family ties, but can't ignore their own feelings. When love and family conflict, how should we choose? Thank you.
I think for questions like this, the so-called thoughts of young people, sometimes they are quite lively and energetic, and sometimes they can be rather impulsive. Sometimes, without careful and thorough observation, decisions are made quite rashly. So, in situations like this, I think, it's best to communicate with your family and those involved as much as possible. In our world, there are many situations where families at first may initially disagree with each other, but later on the family as a whole completely agrees. This phenomenon is actually very common. So generally speaking, I think it's best to make efforts from all sides, from every direction, to reach understanding, so that you don't excessively harm the interests of your family too much, while at the same time your own personal feelings are truly and genuinely protected. The only way is not to make a decision immediately or hastily in a short period of time. You should make a decision only after thoroughly understanding, carefully communicating, and patiently observing from all possible aspects. That way, you will also be able to find a real and effective solution.
Hello, Rinpoche. I am from the 2009 electrical engineering class. Emotional attachment are painful. If we encounter that kind of pain in daily life, which we definitely do often, when the pain is so overwhelming that we really can't sleep, is there any way to help ourselves fall asleep?
Actually, when it comes to suffering, it's not just young people. In the future, you may often have trouble sleeping, whether due to work or in your daily life. Sleeplessness will happen quite frequently, and it can be suffering. I've seen many wealthy and influential people in the West over the years. They take sleeping pills every night before bed, and only after taking them can they actually fall asleep. This phenomenon is very common in modern society. Buddhism has a method. If you can't sleep, You can contemplate the image of Shakyamuni Buddha with devotion in a quiet way, or let go of all the issues you are particularly attached to in your mind during this practice. You can meditate or practice Zen on your bed for about 10 to 20 minutes with focused attention and calm breathing steadily throughout. Don't cling to anything at all. Then your mind will enter a state of deep purity, tranquility, and gentleness quite naturally in this way. Falling asleep with this peaceful state is the best. Sometimes when I'm not feeling well physically, or when I'm troubled or anxious about something, or even sometimes when I'm feeling agitated. For example, if I have something really important to do today, that thing just keeps appearing in my mind repeatedly without stop over and over again. At that moment, I let go of all those things. I start to meditate, and when my mind becomes completely clear and pure, then within a kind of radiance or a kind of Buddha's light, I fall asleep. Falling asleep like this, I drift off quickly. Everyone has different preferences, so this may not work for all. In some sutras, the Buddha said this method is the most thorough and effective.
Khenpo Sodargye spent about an hour or so. He gave everyone a fairly comprehensive and in-depth explanation of asking the Buddha, what is love? He provided a relatively thorough and deep interpretation, offering a more comprehensive understanding. So today everyone has been sitting here for over an hour. You must now have a better understanding of Buddhism, or at least of this topic. I hope that everyone will give Khenpo Sodargye a warm round of applause to express our gratitude.